Hollywood once taught us to believe that stars only disappear when the velvet curtain closes, when the final scene is completed, or when the lights along the Walk of Fame slowly fade. But the truth is far colder. A silk scarf, a discarded match, a half-burned cigarette, or a confusing gear selector was enough to end lives once admired by millions. No script prepared them, no director had time to yell "cut," and there was no chance for a second take. Today, we are stepping into an especially dark chapter of entertainment history, where seemingly untouchable icons lost their lives under circumstances so ordinary that they became terrifying. Some were doing the work they loved, some were simply sitting at home. One had just finished filming a scene, while another was only preparing to travel after a performance. What makes these stories so haunting is not only how they ended, but how the line between an ordinary day and tragedy sometimes lasted only a few seconds. If you want me to explore any more movies, TV shows, or Hollywood secrets, just comment right below. And I'm Ryan. Please like and subscribe to the channel to start exploring the main content of this video with me.
Olive Thomas. Olive Thomas was only 25 when Hollywood began to see her as an entirely new kind of star. She did not possess the distant quality of the screen goddesses who came after her. Olive was lively, mischievous, and modern, like a young woman racing ahead of her own era. Before movies could speak, her eyes and movements were already enough to hold an audience's attention. From the stage of the Ziegfeld Follies, Olive entered the film industry, appeared in numerous productions, and became one of the earliest faces to shape the rebellious flapper image of the 1920s. But the dark secret in this story was not hidden on a dangerous movie set. It was inside a room at the Ritz Hotel in Paris in September 1920. Olive was vacationing with her husband, Jack Pickford, the younger brother of Mary Pickford. After returning late one night, she accidentally drank a solution of bichloride of mercury that had been kept in the room. It was an extremely toxic chemical that appeared in certain medical treatments at the time. French authorities concluded that the incident was an accident, but the press almost immediately transformed that hotel room into the center of rumors about marriage partying and suicide. What I find especially bitter is that Olive remained conscious during her final days and reportedly insisted that she had not intentionally tried to harm herself. Doctors in Paris fought to save her, but the poison caused severe damage to her body. Olive died on September 10, 1920. She never had the chance to enter the most dazzling era of American cinema. Yet her death became one of Hollywood's earliest scandals to be aggressively exploited by the media. A young star lost not only her future, but also control over the story of her own life. Martha Mansfield. While Olive Thomas was surrounded by rumors after her death, Martha Mansfield became a vivid warning about a Hollywood that had almost no concept of safety. On November 29, 1923, Martha was filming The Warrens of Virginia in San Antonio, Texas. She was wearing a Civil War-era dress made from several layers of wide, lightweight, highly flammable fabric. In front of the camera, the costume created the perfect classical appearance. In real life, it was like a pile of combustible material wrapped around the body of a 24-year-old actress. Martha had completed her scene and was sitting inside a car when a burning match reportedly flew into her dress. No one was ever able to determine with certainty who had thrown it. All anyone knew was that the flames spread so quickly that the people around her barely had time to think. Actor Wilfrid Lytell immediately threw his heavy coat over Martha to protect her head and neck. The driver also suffered burns to his hands while trying to pull the burning layers of fabric away from her.
They acted quickly, but the fire moved even faster. Martha was taken to the hospital and remained conscious for some time. Some accounts say that she tried to comfort her mother as though she were the one responsible for keeping everyone else calm. She died the following day. What is truly infuriating is that the accident did not happen during a reckless action sequence. The cameras had stopped, the scene had been completed, and Martha was simply resting. Hollywood at the time could spend thousands of dollars making a dress look beautiful, yet it had not created strict enough measures to protect the person wearing it.
Tony Knight.
Nearly a century later, people might believe that such senseless accidents belonged only to the silent film era. But June 7, 2024 proved otherwise. Tony Knight was attending the Rock and Cars Festival in Lavaur in southern France. He was not performing a stunt, standing near explosives, or participating in any dangerous activity. Tony was simply one attendee among many in a festival atmosphere where music, vehicles, and conversations created the cheerful feeling of an ordinary day. Tony was a British comedian who was also well known for his work as a dog trainer and for his nickname, the Dog Listener. Friends described him as healthy, enthusiastic, and enjoying a happy period in his life. Then, two large branches suddenly broke away from a tree on the festival grounds. They fell onto the group of people below, injuring 4 and making Tony the only person who did not survive. There was no violent storm in this story to help us explain what happened. It was precisely that randomness that made it so frightening. Trust me, this is the kind of story that makes me stop for a moment. Tony had spent years helping audiences laugh and helping families better understand the animals they loved. He was also preparing for new performances in the United Kingdom. All those plans ended beneath a tree at a summer festival. Hollywood often likes to construct deaths with background music, foreshadowing, and warning signs. Real life does not work that way. Sometimes it offers no satisfying explanation, leaving only an emptiness that those who remain must learn to carry. Isadora Duncan. But if a falling tree branch already seems difficult to believe, the story of Isadora Duncan feels like a cruel metaphor written by fate itself. Isadora was not a Hollywood star in the conventional sense. She was a pioneer who freed dance from rigid movements, abandoned traditional ballet shoes, and turned the stage into a place where the body could speak through emotion. When she appeared in flowing fabrics that moved with the air, audiences did not merely see a dancer, they saw an image of freedom. On September 14, 1927, Isadora climbed into an open-top Amilcar automobile in Nice, France. She was wearing a long silk scarf, an accessory perfectly suited to the romantic image that had made her famous. A friend reportedly advised her to wear a coat because of the cold weather, but Isadora chose the scarf. Her final words before the car moved have been recalled in several different versions. One famous account claims that she said she was going to glory. Her friend Mary Desty later remembered that the statement was actually closer in meaning to "I am going to love." As soon as the car began moving, Isadora's scarf became caught in the rear wheel and axle. She was pulled from her seat and could not survive the injuries. Oh my God, an object that symbolized elegance, movement, and freedom became the very thing that ended the life of the woman who had transformed those qualities into art. Isadora had endured many personal losses, including the deaths of her children, yet she continued dancing. In the end, it was not the stage or old age that defeated her. It was several feet of silk, a turning wheel, and a moment no one had time to prevent. Anton Yelchin. Anton Yelchin was taken by something entirely different. An object that was supposed to be designed to protect and serve people. Anton was born in Leningrad and moved to the United States with his parents when he was a child. He grew into an actor capable of bringing vulnerability, intelligence, and sincerity to every role. To many viewers, he was Pavel Chekhov in the modern Star Trek film series. Outside those major productions, however, Anton also earned critical recognition through Alpha Dog, Like Crazy, Green Room, and many daring independent projects. On the morning of June 19, 2016, Anton stepped out of his Jeep Grand Cherokee on the steep driveway in front of his Los Angeles home. The vehicle rolled backward, pinning him between a brick pillar and a security gate. Friends came looking for him when he failed to appear at a rehearsal and discovered the heartbreaking scene. Anton was only 27 years old. At first, the incident sounded like an incomprehensible accident, but then a detail emerged that made the story even more troubling. His vehicle model was included in a recall involving an electronic gear selector design that could cause drivers to mistakenly believe the vehicle was in park. The United States Traffic Safety Authorities had previously recorded cases of vehicles rolling away because drivers did not realize that the gear selector had not actually entered the intended position. Anton died only days before an official repair notice was widely sent to many owners. His family later filed a lawsuit and reached a settlement with the manufacturer. But no amount of money could restore a career that was just beginning to shine. What angers me most is that Anton was not speeding or seeking a thrill. He was standing outside his own home and was turned into a victim by his own vehicle. Jack Cassidy. From the silence of a private driveway, we entered Jack Cassidy's apartment, where the final flames stood in complete contrast to the stages that had once celebrated him. Jack was the kind of performer born to make people look at him. He possessed a powerful voice, an elegant presence, and the ability to turn confidence into something almost hypnotic. He won a Tony Award shown on Broadway and appeared in numerous television programs. Jack's charming villain roles in Columbo were especially well-suited to his sharp and slightly dangerous appearance. But as the fame of his sons, David and Sean Cassidy, exploded, the family witnessed tensions that no public image could conceal. Relatives described Jack as extraordinarily talented, but also insecure, proud, and unable to accept it when the spotlight shifted to someone else. His final years were associated with alcohol-long nights and an increasingly obvious sense of isolation. That is something Hollywood rarely discusses honestly. A person can receive applause from audiences and still feel as though he is being left behind within his own famous family. In the early hours of December 12, 1976, Jack fell asleep on the sofa in his West Hollywood apartment while a cigarette was still burning. The fire caught the upholstery and then spread. When he was found, he had apparently tried to move toward the door, but had been unable to escape. His body had to be identified through dental records and a ring bearing his family crest. Jack was only 49. A performer who had once controlled every step on stage with complete precision died in his sleep because of a small habit that millions of people at the time still considered normal. Butterfly McQueen. Butterfly McQueen understood a different kind of Hollywood danger, one that did not erupt in a few seconds, but quietly stripped away dignity over many years. She became immortal through her role as Prissy in Gone with the Wind. But that fame came with a cage. Hollywood saw her distinctive voice, comic expressions, and small frame, then repeatedly cast her as a foolish maid. McQueen once said that she did not object to playing a maid the first time because she believed it was a way to enter the profession. What she hated was being continually asked to repeat that image of stupidity. She stepped away from film during several periods, attended college as an adult, and eventually won a Daytime Emmy Award in 1980. To me, that was a quiet but powerful victory. The woman who had once been restricted by the film industry lived long enough to prove that she was far more than a single role. However, on December 22, 1995, a simple task inside her small home near Augusta, Georgia, led to tragedy. As McQueen attempted to light a kerosene heater, flames suddenly erupted and caught her clothing. McQueen was taken to the hospital but died from her severe injuries at the age of 84. One detail says a great deal about the kind of person she was. She donated her body to science, as though, even after death, she wanted her life to offer something more useful than the stereotypes Hollywood had once imposed on her. Audiences remember Prissy, but I believe they should also remember the woman who objected to black people being turned into objects of ridicule. The accident ended her life, but her fight to be recognized as a complete human being is the legacy that deserves to be told. Grace Kelly. Then we come to Grace Kelly, a woman whose life looked like a fairy tale produced with an unlimited Hollywood budget. On screen, Grace was cool, elegant, and mysterious. Alfred Hitchcock understood that her calm exterior concealed a powerful energy, so he cast her in Dial M for Murder, Rear Window, and To Catch a Thief. She won an Oscar for The Country Girl, and then left the film industry at the height of her career to marry Prince Rainier III. An actress became the Princess of Monaco. What ending could have been more perfect? But that fairy tale ended on a mountain road on September 13, 1982. Grace was driving a Rover with her youngest daughter Stephanie from the family estate at Roc-Agel back toward Monaco. On the winding road, she lost control, and the vehicle plunged down an embankment approximately 46 feet deep. Stephanie survived with injuries. Grace was taken to a hospital in critical condition. Initial information gave the public reason to hope, but medical examinations revealed that she had suffered irreversible brain damage. The widely accepted conclusion was that Grace suffered a stroke while driving, leaving her unable to control the vehicle. She died the following day at the age of 52. Numerous rumors later emerged, ranging from claims that Stephanie had been driving to suggestions that the brakes had failed, but the family repeatedly denied that her daughter had been behind the wheel. Perhaps the real secret was not a conspiracy. It was something simpler and more painful. The woman regarded as the embodiment of perfect control, lost control of her own body during a few fateful seconds. Keith Relf. While Grace Kelly's case may make you feel that fate was unbearably cruel, Keith Relf was taken by the very sound associated with his name. Keith was the singer and harmonica player for the Yardbirds, a band that helped open the way for many branches of modern rock music. Names such as Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and Jimmy Page passed through its lineup. But Keith's rough, fragile voice was the thread connecting the band's bold experimentation to the raw emotion of the blues. For Your Love and Heart Full of Soul still carry his unmistakable mark. Keith's health was never strong. He had suffered from severe asthma since childhood and continued dealing with respiratory problems as an adult. Nevertheless, he continued touring, recording, and searching for new directions after the Yardbirds. On May 12, 1976, Keith was in the basement of his home playing an electric guitar. It was the most familiar image imaginable for a musician. There was no audience and no stage lighting, only the artist and his instrument. But the guitar's electrical system was reportedly not safely grounded. Keith was electrocuted and died at the age of 33. Certain details have been repeated online for years, including the story that he was playing guitar in a bathtub, but there is no reliable basis for that claim. The truth does not need further exaggeration. A singer who helped make rock music more powerful was killed by the electrical current inside his instrument at home. The irony was so bitter that people easily transformed it into legend. Behind that strange story, however, were two children who lost their father and an artist who never had the chance to complete the next chapter of his career. Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin willingly entered distances that most of us would immediately step away from. Crocodiles, venomous snakes, and creatures that terrified ordinary people became opportunities for him to explain, educate, and inspire. With his energetic exclamations and a smile that almost never disappeared, Steve turned wildlife programs into a global phenomenon. Most importantly, he did not merely perform acts of bravery. He wanted audiences to love nature enough to protect it. On September 4, 2006, Steve was working at Bat Reef near Port Douglas, Australia. Filming for Ocean's Deadliest had temporarily slowed because of weather conditions, so he recorded additional underwater footage of a stingray for his daughter Bindi's program. These animals usually avoid humans, and fatal stingray incidents are extremely rare. Steve swam above and behind the animal to film it moving away. Suddenly, the stingray reacted defensively, raising its tail and driving its barb into his chest. The camera crew brought Steve onto the boat and attempted to resuscitate him, but the damage was too severe. He died at the age of 44. Cameraman Justin Lyons later said that Steve understood his condition and calmly stated that he was dying. The footage of the incident was never released, a decision that I completely respect. Steve did not need his final moment to become immortal. Australia Zoo. Wildlife warriors and the work of Terry Bindi and Robert Irwin continued the most important thing he left behind: the belief that understanding can transform fear into compassion. William Holden. In complete contrast to Steve Irwin's endless energy, the final chapter of William Holden's life unfolded in almost absolute silence. Holden had once been the model of post-war Hollywood masculinity. He did not need to show off to command the screen. In Sunset Boulevard, he became the bitter guide through Hollywood's decaying dream. He won an Oscar for Stalag 17. Through Sabrina the Bridge on the River Kwai and Network, he proved that his appeal could survive across several generations of cinema. But the man once recognized throughout the world spent his final years fighting a prolonged battle with alcohol. On November 12, 1981, inside his Santa Monica apartment, Holden slipped on a rug while intoxicated and struck his head against the edge of a table. The wound caused him to lose a significant amount of blood. What sends a chill through me is that forensic evidence suggested he may have remained conscious for at least around half an hour. There was a telephone inside the room, but no clear indication that he managed to call for help. No one was beside him to recognize how serious the situation had become. The building manager found him 4 days later. William Holden was 63. The man who had once been surrounded by film crews, assistants, reporters, and fans died alone after a fall that may initially have seemed minor. This is not a story intended to judge someone for an addiction. On the contrary, it demonstrates how deeply dependence can isolate a person. Fame placed Holden on thousands of screens, but at the moment when he most needed someone beside him, his apartment contained nothing but silence. Barbara Weldons. Barbara Weldon's never had enough time to become a legend in the way William Holden did. She had only released her debut album Le Grand Âge de l'Homme in February 2017. Raised in a circus environment, Barbara learned acrobatics, juggling, and trapeze work before pursuing piano and musicology. Her performances possessed a raw yet intense quality, influenced by the French chanson tradition. She often sang barefoot, as though she wanted to erase the final distance between her body, the stage, and the music. On the night of July 19, 2017, Barbara was performing at the festival Léo Ferré inside the Notre-Dame des Cordeliers Church in Gourdon, southwestern France. Approximately 200 audience members were present. In the middle of the performance, she suddenly collapsed on stage. At first, witnesses only knew that she had suffered cardiac arrest. Later, an autopsy confirmed that Barbara had been electrocuted. Her feet had come into contact with faulty electrical equipment on the stage. An ancient setting, a voice echoing through the room, and an audience listening closely suddenly became the scene of an accident no one was emotionally prepared to witness. Barbara was only 35. She had recently received several awards for emerging talent and was standing on the verge of bringing her music to a larger audience. This is truly insane. A stage is considered a place where the artist controls the emotions of the room, yet a single unsafe piece of equipment reversed everything. Her death reminded the performance industry that intimacy and spontaneity cannot replace technical inspections. Art may be free, but electrical systems equipment and procedures designed to protect performers must never be treated carelessly. Boris Sagal. And now the final story takes us back to a movie set where a man behind the camera became the victim of one movement in the wrong direction. Boris Sagal did not possess a face familiar to mainstream audiences, but he directed numerous memorable television programs and films. From The Twilight Zone, Columbo, and Rich Man, Poor Man, to The Omega Man and the miniseries Masada, Boris was the kind of artist who helped actors shine while remaining almost entirely outside the frame himself. He was also the father of actress Katie Sagal. On May 22, 1981, Boris was participating in the production of the miniseries World War III at Timberline Lodge in Oregon. He stepped out of a helicopter in the parking area. In such an environment, the direction in which a person moves after leaving the aircraft is a matter of life and death. Instead of walking toward the safe side, Boris turned in the wrong direction and entered the area of the spinning tail rotor. The accident happened too quickly for the people around him to stop it. He was taken to a hospital in Portland, but died approximately 5 hours later at the age of 57. No actor forgot a line. No special effect exploded at the wrong moment. There was only one step in the wrong direction. That is why the story of Boris Sagal creates such a frighteningly appropriate ending for this list. A director who spent his career deciding where characters should go lost his life because of his own mistaken turn. Hollywood can create wars, pandemics, and the end of the world through a camera. But the real danger sometimes exists outside the frame, within the roar of an engine so loud that no one can hear the warning. When I look back at these people, I do not want them to be remembered only for the way they died. Olive Thomas brought the spirit of a new generation to the screen. Martha Mansfield worked during an era when the film industry was still learning how to protect its performers. Isadora Duncan freed dance from its old limitations. Anton Yelchin brought rare sincerity to every role. Butterfly McQueen fought against Hollywood's discriminatory stereotypes, while Steve Irwin inspired millions of children to look at wildlife with curiosity instead of fear. These stories also reveal a truth that the entertainment industry often tries to conceal beneath beautiful lighting. Success does not make the human body invulnerable. An Academy Award cannot prevent a stroke. A stage filled with spectators cannot replace a safe electrical system. Fame cannot call for help inside a locked apartment. Even a familiar device can become dangerous when its design maintenance or operating instructions are not clear enough. That is not pessimism. It is the reason we must take small warnings seriously. The greatest lesson I take from these stories is not that we should live in fear. It is exactly the opposite. We should live with greater awareness. Do not dismiss a dangerous habit merely because it has been repeated many times without consequences. Inspect equipment. Follow safety procedures. Seek support when alcohol or isolation begins to control your life. And do not be afraid to stop when conditions are no longer appropriate. Sometimes, courage does not mean continuing despite everything. Sometimes, it means making the decision to say that today is not the day to take the risk. If you value the forgotten stories of classic Hollywood that have been covered by the dust of time, please press like, subscribe to Ryan's Hollywood Uncovered, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the secrets, tragedies, and scandals we will continue to explore. Your support helps these people be remembered for their entire lives rather than only for their final few seconds. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. Take care of yourself, cherish the people beside you, and I will see you again on our next journey.